It was the day I had been dreaming of since I was a little girl. The soft rustle of my wedding gown, the warm sunlight peeking through the stained glass windows, the gentle hum of music playing in the background, everything was perfect. I stood before the mirror, my mother adjusting my veil with trembling hands, her eyes already teary with pride. I was marrying the man I loved. The man who made me believe in forever again. Daniel. He wasn't just charming, he was solid, dependable, the kind of man who opened car doors, who remembered to bring home flowers on random Thursdays, who told my father he'd never hurt me, even before asking for my hand. We had been together for almost 3 years. And in those years, he became everything. My best friend, my safe place, the man who helped me heal from a broken past filled with silence and betrayal. Our love story wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Or so I thought. The church was packed with friends and family. People I hadn't seen in years, gathered under one roof, all smiling, whispering blessings. I walked down the aisle to the man I believed knew every part of me, and loved me still. And in that moment, nothing else existed. The ceremony was beautiful. We exchanged vows. Tears were shed. Applause thundered through the church as we were pronounced husband and wife. I remember looking at Daniel and thinking, this is it. We've made it. The reception was lively, full of laughter, clinking glasses, heartfelt speeches. My maid of honor roasted me lovingly, and Daniel's younger brother recalled childhood stories that had the room in stitches. But just as we were getting ready for our first dance, a hush fell over the room. It was almost as if the music stopped on its own. Heads turned toward the large double doors at the back of the hall. I looked too, wondering if maybe someone was late. And then I saw her. A woman stood there. She wasn't dressed for a wedding. No gown, no makeup. Just jeans and a plain, pale sweater. But what froze me, what knocked the breath from my lungs, was the baby in her arms. A small boy, barely a year old, clinging to her with wide, frightened eyes. She didn't walk in. She stood at the threshold. Her eyes scanned the room slowly, and then locked onto Daniel. Everything in me went cold. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened ever so slightly. His jaw clenched. And in that silence, I heard his breath catch. I whispered, "Who is she?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because his eyes were locked on hers, not with confusion, not with fear, but with a familiarity I couldn't unsee. And that was the moment my wedding day stopped being perfect. Time stood still as she stood at the door. My heart pounded in my ears louder than the music, now muffled under the weight of confusion. Daniel didn't speak. He couldn't. And neither could I. The woman's expression wasn't angry. It was hollow. Worn. As if she had practiced this moment in her head 100 times and still wasn't ready. She slowly stepped forward, gently bouncing the child in her arms. No one dared stop her. Everyone just watched. "Daniel," she said softly, barely audible over the shocked silence. He let go of my hand. Not abruptly, but slowly, as if surrendering to gravity. I could feel the blood drain from my face. His fingers had just been holding mine during our first dance as husband and wife. Now, they fell to his sides. "I need to talk to you," she said. I wanted to scream. To cry. To run. But instead, I did what I always did, I froze. I watched them, side by side now, as if I had never existed. My mind was racing. Who was she? What was that baby to him? To us? "Not now," he finally muttered, voice strained. "Not here." But it was too late. The moment was shattered. Our wedding wasn't a celebration anymore, it was a scandal unfolding in real time. My maid of honor gently placed a hand on my back. "Should I?" she asked. I shook my head. I needed to hear the truth. Daniel walked a few steps toward her and whispered something. She shook her head. "You don't get to hide from this anymore. Not today." And then she looked at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "You didn't know. That's not your fault." I blinked. Didn't know what? The baby, still cradled in her arms, stared curiously. As if he, too, was trying to understand why the room was so tense. Daniel turned back to me, shame etched into every line of his face. "Her name is Maya," he said, finally. She's from before you. We dated, briefly. It ended before I met you. But she didn't tell me she was pregnant." His voice cracked. "She showed up 2 months ago. Told me everything. I didn't believe it at first. I asked for a test. It came back positive." The words hit me like waves. He knew. For 2 months. And still, he stood at that altar with me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice trembling. "I didn't know how," he said. "I thought I could protect you from it. From her. From all of this. I was going to tell you after the wedding, after we had a moment to just be happy. But we built everything on honesty," I said. "You promised me there were no secrets. I didn't want to lose you." "You already did," I whispered. That's when Maya spoke again. "He's not a bad man," she said. "He didn't abandon me. I left. I didn't tell him. That's on me. But when I came back, I thought he deserved to know. And I thought you deserved to know too." The room was still watching. It felt like a cruel play, acted in slow motion. Daniel looked at me with pleading eyes. "I still want this life with you. I want you. But he's my son. I can't turn away from him either." In a flash, everything that had felt so certain became impossibly complicated. I wasn't just a bride anymore. I was a woman staring down a truth I hadn't seen coming. A truth that changed everything. The guests had begun to scatter. What was supposed to be the happiest day of my life had turned into something I could barely process. The music had stopped. The laughter had faded. The fairy tale was over. I sat alone in the bridal suite, staring blankly at the bouquet still clutched in my hands. Every rose in it now felt like a lie. A knock at the door startled me. "Can I come in?" It was Daniel. I didn't answer. He stepped inside anyway. His tux jacket was gone. His sleeves were rolled up. He looked like a man trying to hold himself together with tape. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything." I finally looked up. "You lied to me." "I didn't mean to. I didn't know how to fit this into the life we were planning. I thought if I ignored it long enough, maybe it would all go away. But children don't go away, Daniel. They grow. They become real. And now I have to face that your real life was never what you showed me." He sat across from me, his voice quiet. "I didn't choose to be a father. But I can't walk away now." "And what about me?" I asked. "Am I just supposed to accept this? Raise a child that was never part of our plan? I don't expect you to do anything. I just don't want to lose you." A silence stretched between us. That night, I didn't go home with him. I went to my sister's apartment. I needed space. And answers. The next day, I met with Maya. I had to know more than what I'd seen in a flash on my wedding day. We sat at a quiet park, the baby sleeping in his stroller beside her. She looked tired, but more at peace than I expected. "I'm not here to wreck your life," she said. "I didn't even know Daniel was getting married. I only came because I thought the truth mattered." "It does," I said. "But timing matters too." She nodded. "I get that. I really do. I wasn't looking for anything from him. Just acknowledgement. He has a right to know his son. And his son has a right to know him. As much as I wanted to hate her, I couldn't. She wasn't the villain. The situation was. Back at home, Daniel's mom called me. She was heartbroken. Not just over the ruined wedding, but over the fracture it created. "You know, when Daniel's father died, he changed," she said. "He became scared of being left behind. I think that's what all this was, fear. Not malice." I listened in silence. I was beginning to realize this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about unresolved grief, poor decisions, and a man trying to do right by too many people at once. That week, the wedding photographer emailed me the first batch of photos. I shouldn't have opened them, but I did. In one of them, I was smiling, truly smiling, at Daniel, right before the chaos. That girl in the photo didn't know what was coming. But she looked so happy. I closed the laptop. Later that night, Daniel came to my door again. Not to beg. Just to talk. "I've been meeting with Maya," he said. "We're figuring out custody. Boundaries. I don't want her in our lives romantically, and she doesn't want that either. I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I admitted. "I know," he said. "But I'm not going to stop showing up, until you tell me to stop." He walked away after that, leaving me with one more piece of the puzzle. This wasn't just about what he did, it was about what I wanted now. Could I still see a future with him? One that included a child I had no part in creating? I didn't have the answer yet. But the questions had never felt more urgent. I thought the worst part was over. I thought once the initial shock settled, I'd find clarity. But nothing prepared me for how deeply the truth would continue to unravel. A week after the wedding that never really happened, I received a letter, hand-delivered. It was from Maya. I held it in my hands for an hour before opening it. "Dear Alina, I never meant to hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want you to understand. I met Daniel during a very dark time in both our lives. We never planned a future, and when I found out I was pregnant, we were already falling apart. I moved away not because I wanted to keep the child from him, but because I didn't think he'd want to be involved. But he came back into our lives, just as I was learning how to forgive him. That's when I found out about you. And I knew I had to tell the truth. I didn't come to take him back. I came to give you the honesty I never got." My fingers trembled by the time I finished reading. The letter wasn't angry. It was almost apologetic, full of a quiet kind of heartbreak I didn't expect. But it also confirmed something I had feared: Daniel had been in their lives again. Recently. He lied. Again. I stormed into Daniel's apartment later that night. He looked stunned to see me. "I asked you a week ago if there was anything else I didn't know," I said, slapping the letter onto the counter. He picked it up, read a line, and shut his eyes. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me how it was." "She called me a month before the wedding," he began. "Said the baby had a fever and she didn't know what to do. I went. And I kept going back, not because of her, but because I started falling in love with my son. That sentence cracked something in me. I never wanted to keep it from you, he said. I just didn't know how to explain that I was building a bond with someone else's child. My child. Without destroying what we were about to build. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my chest. You were building something with her behind my back while I was writing vows. It wasn't about her. It was about a boy who didn't choose any of this. We stared at each other across the emotional canyon between us. For the first time, I felt like I was losing him. Not because of her. But because of who he was becoming, a father. A man with responsibilities that no longer revolved around me. The next day, I stayed with my friend Clara. She didn't offer advice. Just space. I watched the world outside her window blur into motionless thoughts. I kept picturing Daniel holding his son. Would he look at the boy the way he once looked at me, like his whole world lived in that gaze? That weekend, I got a message from Maya again. This time, just a photo. Daniel and the baby. Sitting on a park bench. Daniel was holding a stuffed giraffe in one hand, bottle in the other, and he looked content. Like he was exactly where he needed to be. It broke me. Because I realized something painfully true, I wasn't part of that picture. Not now. Maybe not ever. The pressure inside me finally exploded that night. I called Daniel. I can't do this, I said, voice shaking. Not like this. I love you, but I feel like you're slipping into a life I was never invited to join. He was silent. I need to choose myself now, I whispered. Even if it means letting you go. Alina, he started, but the words died. He didn't try to fight me. And maybe that was the answer I needed. The phone slipped from my hand. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when everything had changed. Wondering if this pain would always linger, or if time would eventually smooth out the sharpest edges. But one thing was clear. The wedding was just the beginning. The real story was unfolding now. And I wasn't sure how it would end. I thought stepping away from Daniel would bring peace. I believed giving US space would help me heal, help me make sense of everything. But sometimes, distance doesn't bring clarity. It brings truth, and not always the kind you expect. A week after our last call, I found myself wandering past the same coffee shop where Daniel and I used to meet after work. I hadn't planned it. My feet just took me there. And through the window, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Daniel. Sitting across from Maya. Not just sitting. Smiling. Laughing. The baby in a stroller beside them. I stood frozen. Part of me wanted to burst through the door and demand an explanation. The other part whispered, walk away. You're done. You left for a reason. But I couldn't ignore it. Not after everything. Later that evening, I texted Daniel, I saw you today. At the coffee shop. Are you two together again? The reply came an hour later. Yes. I didn't plan for it to happen. But, yes. My breath caught in my throat. The final piece of my heart cracked in two. Clara, my best friend, tried to help me make sense of it. Maybe it's about the baby, she said gently. Maybe he's trying to create a stable life for his son. But we were building a life too, I whispered. One that didn't end with me standing in a wedding dress, abandoned. The betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about trust. I had given Daniel everything, my future, my loyalty, my deepest fears, and he had returned them in fragments. But the worst part wasn't that he had gone back to Maya. It was what I learned next. A few days later, Maya herself messaged me again. Only this time, her message was different. I didn't expect to fall for him again. But I also didn't expect to find out the truth like this. Alina. I think he was seeing both of us. I dropped my phone. We met that evening. In a quiet park. Maya looked tired. Not angry. Just drained. She handed me her phone. Text messages. Dozens. Daniel to her. Daniel to me. Sent on the same days. Same hours. Loving words. Reassurances. Promises. I didn't know how deep it went until I checked the timestamps, Maya said. He told me you left. That you were done. That he was free to move on. I couldn't breathe. He hadn't just lied. He had played us both. Used our uncertainty to keep us hanging. And maybe he hadn't loved either of us the way we deserved. I looked at Maya. So now what? She shrugged. Now we stopped giving him the power to rewrite our stories. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the ceiling, letting the silence soak into my bones. Because the twist wasn't just that Daniel had chosen her. The twist was realizing he never really chose at all. He floated between our lives, slipping through cracks, using our kindness to his advantage. And the saddest part? I had been ready to forgive him. Until I found out there was nothing left to forgive. In the morning, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I made breakfast. I played music. I danced, awkwardly, clumsily, in my kitchen. Because for the first time, I didn't feel like I was mourning a breakup. I felt like I had dodged a bullet. But somewhere deep down, I knew there was one more thing left to do. Face him. And that confrontation was going to change everything. Daniel didn't expect to see both of us waiting for him at the same time. Maya and I stood at opposite ends of the small garden behind the cafe where he worked. I had called him earlier that day, asked him to meet me there. Maya had done the same, unaware of the other's plan, until I texted her an hour before. I think it's time we both heard the truth. Together. The sun was starting to set when he walked in, a casual smile playing on his lips, until he saw us. It faded quickly, replaced by the look of a man cornered by the weight of his own lies. Alina? Maya? He looked from one of us to the other, stammering, "What's going on?" I kept my voice steady. "We need answers, Daniel. Not half-truths. Not charm. Just truth." Maya stepped forward, her hands tucked protectively into the pockets of her coat. "Were you ever honest with either of us?" Silence. A beat passed. Then another. And then he sighed. "I loved both of you. Maybe in different ways, but I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." "That's exactly what people say after they've already done the hurting," I replied. His voice turned defensive. "I was trying to do the right thing for my son. Maya needed help. I didn't know how to let go." I looked him dead in the eyes. "And what about me? The woman you promised forever to? The one standing in a white dress while you disappeared to play house with your past?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. And that silence was the answer we needed. I turned to Maya. She met my eyes, and for the first time, there was no resentment, only understanding. We had both been victims of the same story, written by a man who never knew what he truly wanted. Maya nodded. "You're not going to see your son until we figure out a legal arrangement. I won't let you use him to keep living two lives." Daniel didn't fight it. His shoulders sagged. His lips parted like he wanted to say something profound, but instead, he just looked, defeated. Maybe that was the real end to his story, not rage, not drama, just the slow collapse of everything he'd built on dishonesty. When we left the cafe, Maya and I didn't speak at first. The air between us was thick, not with bitterness anymore, but release. A strange freedom. She finally broke the silence. So, what happens next? I smiled faintly. Whatever we want. For the first time, I think we actually get to write the ending. She nodded, gently rocking the stroller back and forth. Maybe we both needed this to finally move on. Weeks passed. Then a month. I stopped checking his social media. I stopped replaying our memories like a tragic film. Instead, I started doing things for me. I went back to painting. I joined a book club. I even started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I was tired of pretending I wasn't hurt. The wedding photos. I deleted them. But the dress, I kept it. As a reminder. Not of pain, but of strength. One evening, I got a message from Maya. Just wanted you to know. I named him Liam. Not after Daniel. After my grandfather. A good man. I stared at the message for a long time. Then typed, he's lucky to have you. They say betrayal breaks people. But sometimes, it reveals who they truly are. Daniel's lies didn't destroy me, they uncovered the resilience I'd buried deep inside. Maya and I weren't just women he deceived. We were women who chose ourselves, and that choice changed everything. It's strange how life circles back to moments we thought we had left behind. A few months after the wedding that never was, I found myself sitting alone in a quiet cafe, the same one where it had all unraveled. The same one where I had stood, heartbroken, while Daniel tried to explain the unexplainable. But I was different now. Gone was the woman waiting for someone else to choose her. In her place sat someone stronger, wiser, and most importantly, whole. Maya and I had kept in touch. At first, out of necessity. There were legal documents Daniel refused to sign unless one of us mediated. But over time, those conversations turned into late-night chats about motherhood, betrayal, and the strange power of female resilience. She had become, unexpectedly, my closest friend. Liam, her baby, was growing fast. And though he wasn't mine, I felt a connection to him. Perhaps because we had both been blindsided by the same man. Perhaps because part of me still mourned the life I thought I was building. But instead of clinging to what was gone, I started embracing what was ahead. One day, Maya called with unexpected news. Daniel moved away. Said he needed a clean break. Left a note. Said he's sorry. I didn't know how to respond at first. Not because I still loved him, but because a small part of me hoped he'd finally say something meaningful face to face. Instead, he chose silence again. That's who he was. A man who walked away when things got hard. But that no longer had the power to break me. I went back to work. I poured my energy into myself, into healing. I started therapy, traveled solo for the first time, and reconnected with old friends. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living my life, not someone else's fantasy. People sometimes ask me if I regret it all. The dress. The almost marriage. The heartache. And honestly, no. Because everything that happened led me here, to this peace, this clarity, this self-worth. Months later, I was invited to speak at a women's retreat about resilience. I shared my story, not the scandalous parts, but the truth of it. The pain. The choices. The healing. Afterward, a woman approached me, eyes glassy with tears. "You told my story," she whispered. "Thank you for surviving it." In that moment, I realized something: our scars, when shared, become someone else's survival guide. Now, I keep the wedding dress tucked away, not out of grief, but as a reminder. Not of betrayal, but of the day I chose me. Maya is doing well. She and Liam are building a life that's honest and steady. We still talk often. We laugh. We cry. And we remind each other that love doesn't always come wrapped in romance. Sometimes, it comes in the shape of a friendship born from fire. As for Daniel, I don't know where he is. And honestly, I don't need to. Because closure didn't come from his apology, it came from my own growth.